History of the Cromwell tank. In 1940, when the Crusader tank was just getting into service, the British Army already knew it will become obsolete fairly quickly, so they set out specifications for a replacement. The name Cromwell initially covered 3 different vehicles while in development. The A24 Cavalier, which was powered by the original Liberty engine. The A27L Centaur, which used an upgraded 410 horsepower version of the Liberty engine. The A27M, which used the Rolls Royce Meteor engine. This was a modified and downgraded version of the legendary Rolls Royce Merlin aviation engine. 3 designs were submitted for this new cruiser tank, from which Nuffield's design was chosen in January 1941. It reused many parts from the Crusader tank's design, so it was expected to be put into production fairly fast. The prototypes were meant to be delivered in spring 1942, but they were months late. They were put into production anyways, but soon found to be very underpowered with the Liberty engine. There was a desperate need for a better engine. The solution presented itself when a team at Rolls Royce, under the lead of William Arthur Robotham, started recovering and refurbishing parts from crashed Merlin engines for non-aviation purposes. The engines needed a few modifications first to be used in a tank. They had to remove the supercharger so the engine could operate on standard fuel, improve the cooling system so the more powerful engine can be cooled in the small space of the tank's engine compartment, reverse the engine rotation so it matches the tank's transmission. The tests were promising. On the test runs in April 1941, the Merlin-equipped prototype reached 50 miles an hour. This increase in power and added stress made it apparent that the Crusader components used in the new tanks need to be improved for reliability. The tank board still had concerns about the engine cooling, so they decided to split the resources between 3 designs to avoid committing everything to a potentially flawed one. This resulted in the aforementioned 3 variants. The A24, later known as Cavalier, with the original Liberty engine. The A27L, later known as Centaur, with the upgraded Liberty engine. And finally the A27M, later known as Cromwell, with the Meteor engine. To make matters more complicated in a traditional British way, they first called them Cromwell 1, 2 and 3. Not to be confused with the final version markings, which runs from Cromwell 1 to 8. I will describe those at the end of the video. Early models, 6-pounder 57mm gun. Late models, ROQF 75mm gun. Some Cromwells were fitted with the 95mm howitzers. Secondary armament, 7.62mm machine guns. The original design specifications were calling for the use of the 6-pounder gun, as the British doctrine was that different versions of the tank with different weapons for different roles, anti-tank or anti-personnel, were a better solution than a multi-purpose weapon. The early models used the 6-pounder gun, which was very good at the tank killing role with its APDS round, which could penetrate more than 100mm of armor at 1000 yards. However, it didn't have an effective high explosive round. The 6-pounder shells were simply too small to carry a significant amount of explosives. Infantry support versions of the Cromwell were equipped with 95mm howitzers. After having some experience with the US 75mm multipurpose gun, a decision was made that something similar should be used instead of different armament for different roles. Vickers developed a 75mm gun by 1943, but as it turned out it was too big to fit in the Cromwell turret. Luckily, it turned out it's possible to bore out the 6-pounder guns to 75mm and use standard US 75mm ammunition. The result was the Royal Ordnance QF 75mm gun, which could be swapped easily in place of the 6-pounders. Later models equipped with this new 75mm gun are known as Mark Vs. Now let's move on to... The hull had 64mm armor on the front and 32mm on the sides. On later models, the frontal armor was increased to 83, then 100mm. The turret had 76mm frontal armor and 51mm on the sides. The hull was originally a bolted riveted construction, later changed to welding, marked with a W on those models. The Cromwell used a Rolls Royce Meteor 27-litre V12 engine, putting out 600 horsepower, which was a toned-back version of the legendary Rolls Royce Merlin aviation engine. This made the Cromwell the fastest British tank of World War II. Its speed was limited to 40 miles an hour to reduce the load on the suspension. There was a documented case in the Netherlands when 3 Cromwell tanks were able to jump a 20 feet wide canal when they were surprised by enemy forces. Cromwell 1. These were early vehicles using the 6-pounder gun and the Meteor engine. 357 were produced. Cromwell 2. This was a pilot vehicle with welded turrets similar to the Churchill tank. Did not enter production. Cromwell 3. These were Centaur chassis converted to use the Meteor engine. 200 were produced. Cromwell 4. These were the most common models, using the Meteor engine and the QF 75mm gun. 1935 were built, including the Centaur chassis converted to the Meteor engine. Cromwell 5. These were built to the final specification, using 75mm gun and welded hull. Cromwell 6. Close infantry support vehicle with 95mm howitzer. 341 were built. Cromwell 7. These were upgraded with additional 100mm armor and wider tracks. Approximately 1500 were built late in the war. Cromwell 8. These were Cromwell 6 close infantry support vehicles upgraded with the additional armor. The Cromwell was ready early 1944, but only saw combat first at D-Day. They fought through the war in northwestern Europe, used by the 7th and 11th Armored Division, the Guards Armored Division, and the 1st Polish Armored Division. After World War II, some Cromwell saw service in the Korean War. Cromwell Command. These were equipped with high-powered radios. Centaur AE Mark I and Mark II. These were anti-aircraft vehicles based on the Cromwell chassis. Centaur Dozer. These variants had the turret removed and the dozer blade added. Centaur ARV. Recovery vehicle. After the war, some Cromwells were upgunned, creating the FV-4101 Charioteer, fitted with a 20-pounder gun. Later designs based on the Cromwell. The A-30 Challenger, fitted with the 17-pounder gun, and the A-34 Comet. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and in the comments let me know if you wanna see another vehicles.